Hi there, I'm Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media.
And I'm Jenny Walk from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business Live Podcast, the show that helps business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business.
Whether you're launching, ready to scale, or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we've grown our own companies and helped others do the same.
We're glad you're here.
Good morning, everybody. Hi there, I'm Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media, and you're tuning into the Bite-Sized Business Live podcast, the show that helps small business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business. And today I'm joined by Vanessa Emilio, the founder and CEO of Legal 123. So thanks so much for joining us, Vanessa. It's so awesome to have you here.
Well, thanks for inviting us. I think you've picked a really important topic, so hopefully it'll be helpful for everybody.
Yes, I'm super excited about our topic. So officially, the name is, let me just read it out. The topic name is Privacy, Spam, and How You Use the Personal Information You're Collecting. So I know we've only got half an hour, but oh my goodness, there's so much that we really want to cover. But let's first of all just chat about what it is that you do and how you got into it.
It's a little bit accidental. I worked for years and years in-house in finance. And I think, along the way, as the internet grew, people started their little side businesses. And I had a lot of friends who were saying, "Ooh, can you help me with terms and conditions, or what do I need to do? I don't really understand what I'm doing." And they were getting quotes from law firms that were just, insane, thousands and thousands of dollars for something that could be, generalized and replicated. And I was a bit concerned to find that a lot of people were trying to do it themselves. And, right at the very beginning, we had one client who had come to us, and she had copied terms and conditions from California for the same business idea that she was doing in Australia. And she was being sued in California. And she came to us and said, "Well, why is this? How can they sue me there? Do I have to go?" And we said, "We just looked at your terms and conditions and it said you're governed by the laws of California." And she said, "Well, I didn't know what that meant. I just copied it from someone else's terms and conditions." So of course she had to go and defend herself. And, that was very expensive. So anyway, to avoid, there's lots of examples of reasons why this was the right thing to do, but it's just grown. We've had some amazing clients over the years, amazing businesses. They've sold them, moved on, started new businesses, or their business has grown, tenfold, and they had investors come in. We're very, very lucky because we've had really the best clients ever. So I wouldn't look back, not at all.
Oh, that's so awesome. What an interesting thing, though, that you mentioned about that client who had taken her details from a business in the States. How common that must be. Now, for example, one of my favorite platforms is Shopify. Now, Shopify provide a series of templates for you, privacy policy, terms and conditions, etc. It brings all your information in that you've already signed up with and propagates it in there. And then it gives you the opportunity to change it in any way you want. And it's very, very, very broad. So at least it's something. Well, obviously, you really need to change that for your own business. However, or as a starting point. However, other website platforms don't offer anything like that. So these days, anyone can build themselves a website. It's just possible that anyone can do it. But they don't know what they don't know. And clearly, a lot of people aren't researching what they need to know, especially in Australia, with the Australian laws about what you've got to include on a website. And one of those is a privacy policy. So to not even have anything, even in the footer, just a tiny thing that says privacy policy, and tell people how you're using their information when you're receiving it. So that's email address or credit card details or whatever it is. It just blows my mind how many people don't include a single thing. So what happens for people? They can jump onto your website. I know, because I found, just from Googling, that's how I found you. You have an extraordinary amount of information there, sharing why people need the privacy policy, what to include in the privacy policy, for example. And then I also saw that you sell an incredible number of documents. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
It's no, thank you. We do try and provide a lot of information if it's, if you want to do the research and do the work yourself. But I mean, our templates are so inexpensive. I think, why would you bother, spending hours and hours trying to do something that you haven't been schooled or you don't know about the various laws that are maybe in place, and try and draft your own when in fact you can get one for, I think ours is $79 for the privacy policy. But just back on your point, you made a very good point. The privacy law technically and legally says that if you're a small business, you do not need a privacy policy. A small business is under 3 mil revenue. But we always recommend to our clients that you have a privacy policy for a couple of reasons. One, because it's best practice. Two, because clients, that's one of your credibility factors on your website. Clients will be looking for that. They look at the about to see if it actually has you there, or if it's just some fumbling conversation about, we want to serve, the best, services, or we want to sell the best product, but doesn't have any information about who's selling it. Because a lot of websites, as you say, anybody can set one up. There's been, people are concerned about fraud and that not receiving their goods that they pay for. So there's a lot of credibility factors involved, and privacy is one of them. And I have to say that, it probably is more so now as the internet grows and as all these issues have come up. So, in 2022, 1 in 3 Australians had their personal details splashed out into public, thanks to Optus and Medibank and all those, I'm sure you saw in the news. And banks they try to keep it quiet, but they've, splattered, had a lot of accidental hacks or accidental leaks of personal details. And so because of that, I think certainly in Australia, they are really looking at this. And it's really coincidental that that we are speaking about it today, because yesterday, the Attorney General, their findings came out. They've been meaning to, for years, do privacy reform. And yesterday, their report came out. And there's 116, I think, recommendations. And one of them is that everybody, it doesn't matter how much you earn in your business, everybody needs a privacy policy. And then they're expanding the definition of personal information. So you might think, it's okay. I'm okay. I'm just have to tell them I'm collecting their telephone number and their email address. But in fact, they're expanding what you have to tell people and what you're allowed to collect. Because the third kind of interesting point that they made that is a recommendation is what you're allowed to collect. So they're putting in a definition of fair and reasonable. So you can only collect things if it's considered fair and reasonable, which is, in English speak, less legal speak, I would say it is things that you can justify that you need to deliver your services. And the number of businesses that collect a whole slew of information that they shouldn't be collecting is extraordinary. So it's just timely that we're having this conversation, because everybody very shortly will be needing a privacy policy on their website and for the business. Even if you do not have an online business, you need it in your business because you're still collecting the information. So whether you have a paper form or whether you have, you have to have something available if a client asks for it. So it's just, it's one of those things that really had to be reformed, because we used to be really a strong we had very strong privacy policies. We were very well respected for our privacy laws in Australia. And then they didn't do, we haven't done reform for years. And we've now fallen behind. And we used to be in line with New Zealand, for example. And New Zealand's Privacy Act is considered by the EU and GDPR to be sufficient. They don't need to have extra terms and conditions. We in Australia need extra terms and conditions if we're collecting anything, an email address, or if you're marketing, even if you're not marketing and you happen to get an inquiry and you respond to it, that's still collecting an email address according to the EU, the UK and the EU. So we've really fallen behind in our privacy laws in Australia, and they realize that. And now the reforms came out yesterday. You've got until, I think it's March 23rd to make any submissions. And usually it's larger businesses that say, no, this is going to cost us too much to comply with this, or, and then they'll chat about it. But the major reform is happening at the moment, which is really interesting.
It sure is. Excuse me. One of the things that I found quite extraordinary too is the amount of information that they keep that they actually don't need to keep. And one thing, about 15 years ago, I did I bought a business, and there was a website involved already, and it was pretty terrible, and it was collecting, it was selling a product. So I then moved the platform and moved the host, and then the guy said to me, why have you stored all of the credit card details to anybody that's ever bought something before? And I said, I haven't. I've literally just bought the business. I've got no idea the mess that it's in. Anyway, he said, this is shocking. For the 3 years that it was running then prior to you buying it, every single credit card detail has been stored. And I was like, that's intense. Anyway, I quickly did a lot of reading up, which turns out clearly it's
like this man. Identifying it.
Unbelievable. So anyway, sometime later I transferred to Shopify, which is where they're collecting the payments, but we can't even see what numbers they're putting in. That's all encrypted, and then that's gone. If they come back again, you've got to re-enter those details and stuff, which is a really, really, really good thing. So it begs the question, why do people store the information? I mean, obviously we want to be storing the email addresses because we're building up our email database, but there's certainly a lot of information out there that does not need to be stored, isn't there?
No, and that's exactly what they found out with the Optus breach too. They were collecting personal details, family details, numerous details that they didn't need to deliver their services. And I think that that's a little bit scary if you think about, they've got their, what country they're from. And I mean, it was extraordinary. But yeah. I think the payment processors now are all making sure. So if you have Stripe or if you have PayPal, if that's how you're running your business for your payments, you don't see anybody's details. As you say, you'll get their, name, address, and their email is probably pretty much standard. But it's interesting, the point that you make about purchasing someone else's an old website, and the fact that they had all those details. I mean, even that is pretty tricky, because the people whose details, even the emails, should be aware and should be told legally that their details are going to someone else, and they need active agreement. Or, there's standard clauses that you can put in your terms that say, look, at some point we might get taken over, but we'll make sure that that person's under the same duty of privacy and confidentiality. There's things that you can do to mitigate that if you're thinking about selling your business, to cover the transfer of information, because that's one of the most valuable assets of your business. So if you want to sell it, or you want an investor to come in, you want to be able to retain and maintain that email list. And if you're going to sell it to somebody and they buy it and find out that everybody on that list, you're not allowed to contact them, or then there's the value of the business gone.
Absolutely. It is extraordinary when you think about email addresses and how people collect email addresses and then how they can abuse those email addresses by spamming people, by selling those things. So one thing I really wanted to chat with you about today was the buying and selling of the information. So yeah, one of the parts is buying a business, for example, and then, where are you at with that? But another really interesting piece is I had this fabulous client that was very incredibly generous and wonderful in how he wanted to help people. So one of the things that he did was hire a guy in another country that would go out and, let's just give an example of plumbers. So he wanted to be able to give a database of plumbers in Australia to somebody as a gift to help them in their business. So he paid this guy overseas to basically go through every plumber's website in Australia and grab that email address and that name if he could, put it in a database, and then gift it to this business to help them, which was a very extraordinary thing to do. There was many thousands of new email addresses on this. However, the first thing is, yes, those email addresses are out there for anybody to see. They're on a website. However, the legal implications of me, say I was that plumber and I then receive an unsolicited email from someone that I didn't feel like I'd actually given that email address to. What do you think of that?
That's out and out spam. It really is. I
Uh-huh.
mean, there's kind of three things that you have to do to make sure that you are not breaching the Spam Act. One, any communication you have must have your name on it. It must identify who's sending it. Two, it must have a way to contact you. And three, it must give them the right to unsubscribe, or whether it's through text or whatever it might be. But before you can even do that, and before you can send anything, you you have to have some, there has to be an acknowledgement. It can be inferred or it can be actual, but they have to have agreed to receive whatever it is you're going to sell them. So, or try to sell them, or the contact. So if you can't show that, the rule of thumb is if you cannot show that they've accepted this, they've agreed to be contacted, and you can do that, as I say, you either have actual somebody's ticked a box or they've given you their details to get the information, then you have no right to contact them. And that's why I say it's really, really tricky. You're automatically breaching the Spam Act. So you just can't. I know there's a lot of, we had a business come to us that said, well, we're starting this classified business with all small business names and their logo and their address, contact address, and they can come on and claim it. I think you've probably seen, there's a lot of them sort of flying around. And actually what they're doing is incorrect. They're not allowed to use, I mean, that's an IP issue. It's using somebody's logo for your own gain. You're not allowed to do that anyway, because that's breaching intellectual property. But from a perspective of this business going out to all of these other businesses that they've put on this classified website and saying, come and claim your ad, we're giving you free advertising, that is actually spam, because these people have not agreed, and you can't show that in fact they have giving you permission to contact them. So it's really, you've got a choice of two types of permission: actual or inferred. And inferred is, for example, if somebody came to you and asked for a quote or asked you to look at their business, and you, Kylie, came back and said, oh, okay, well, here's what I think. That's inferred permission, because they've contacted you and asked to be contacted. But if you just went out to them and said, I was looking at your website and I think you need some help, and that's actually considered spam. It's not, because it's not solicited and you can't show that they have given permission to be contacted.
It literally blows my mind what Well, I think the cheek of people and what they actually think it's okay to do. So I use this really cool website called Logenics. It costs $7 to get a report done, and they send you this Excel spreadsheet that shows you everywhere that your name is listed all over the internet. And then they make their money if you want them to tidy that up for you, which is, hundreds of dollars or whatever. But actually, just that $7 spreadsheet is so valuable. The reason they actually do it is that so that you can then go to all those different places and tidy it up. Make sure that if you need your name listed with a PTY Limited or the correct address or whatever, so you get to see it all together. But why I think it's so awesome is because I can find where I've been listed, or any of my clients, when we didn't want to be there in the first place. So what you were just talking about with that person setting up that thing and doing it, it's actually illegal. I don't want to be listed on those things, especially when they've got the wrong information. And also then when you click the link to claim that listing, and then they charge you to be there, it's like cheeky, so incredibly cheeky.
But it also goes back to your point about buying someone else's website and buying somebody's personal details. There are businesses that will sell your spreadsheet of details, or sell spreadsheets of details, of personal details, to other businesses. And that is, again, illegal, because under the Privacy Act, you have to give your permission to transfer that, to have that information transferred to another entity. So, and understand the use of it, which goes back to the privacy. So it's, it's kind of a little bit all in the same line, you have to make sure that you're not breaching the spam rules if you're going to go market to these people and they don't know who you are and you're a new business. Yeah. So it's all a little bit, you've got to make sure you tick these boxes. You can't just spend all this money buying this list, nor can you, as a business owner, sell your list without having active permission from your clients. And it happens a lot.
Oh, bet it does. So hence the opt-in is so important. So when people buy from your website, and automatically you've then received their email address because you need to contact them to send them the tracking details or whatever, you need to make sure that they're actually opting in to receive further promotional style of information, right? So yes, you can email them to give the tracking details, for example, but that doesn't mean that you can automatically then add them to your email list and send them promotional stuff. So that's why we have the little box to tick that says, I'm opting in to receive promotional emails from you.
Well, you technically could send them the first, if you didn't have an opt-in on your site, you could send them a marketing email if they had purchased something from you. Again, it depends on what your privacy policy says as well. But generally, as a business owner, you could market to them assuming that they bought something from you and they're interested in something else that you might have that's related, or an updated model, or whatever it might be. But the key to all of this is, on that marketing email, you have to give them a very easy method to unsubscribe. So it can't be call us and, leave a message or text us. It has to be the easiest possible, not send us an email. It should be a click. And it has to be on every email, because at some point, if somebody receiving your marketing or whatever it might be, emails or text or whatever you might be sending, because people market in all kinds of, curious ways these days through social media and LinkedIn. And so you have to have you have to give them the right, and it has to be obvious, and it has to be easy to unsubscribe if you're going to start marketing to them and you don't have active tick box.
And so often it's not easy to unsubscribe. I'm having a battle with a company at the moment. I signed up because they were selling a particular shoe that I wanted, and there was some discount when you check out, just a normal thing. However, I want to unsubscribe. There is so much that's just coming at me. I'm not interested in it. So when you click to unsubscribe, you then have to enter your details that you actually signed up with in the first place. So I put my email address in, and then it says this email is not recognized. So I can't actually unsubscribe. I've then gone to their website and sent a thing through the contact form, which then comes back and says, this isn't monitored. I've gone to their Facebook and sent a message through that, which also says, go to the website. We don't monitor Messenger on here. And it's just going round in a circle. It's totally illegal. I know that. I need to
I
be
hope
able
the shoes are nice.
There you go. I don't even want to look at the shoes because I'm so frustrated with this company. And I just think, I know I wouldn't be the only one. It's just a nightmare of a scenario. They also, on their socials, have their commenting turned off. So I can't even comment on one of their posts to say, oi, I'm trying to contact your company and can't. So something super dodge is going on there. And I don't like it, but it's been a really good experience for me to go, wow, how important it is to make things easy for people. Another one that I really dislike, which I know a lot of people are embracing, is the SMS marketing. And personally for me, because of socials, because of all of that, it feels like we're so available all the time that my phone is my one thing that is mine. I don't want to be marketed via SMS. And particularly because they're always done, and scheduled. So it'll arrive at 2 a.m. and ding, ding, or whatever, it's pretty annoying. So then when you go to unsubscribe from that or press stop or whatever it is that they tell you to get out of it, and then you can't, and it's like, now go to this website and do unsubscribe, and it just becomes a drama. So I think it's such a good reminder to everybody that simplifying the way people can get in touch, simplifying all the things, and just, it's good customer service, isn't it? So just even having, simplifying things for people, like in your footer, have that link to your privacy policy. I just think that anything that makes it a better experience for the client or the customer has got to be a good thing for your business.
Well, it's exactly as you say, and you're so right. And you've summarized that really well, because I feel your frustration with this company, and you will never deal with them again because you're really frustrated. And I think that goes to what we started when we started this conversation. If you've got everything looking professional on your website, you've got all the information people need. If you want to send them an email, you've got the unsubscribe, that. And it's really interesting because I would say, I'm probably exaggerating on the numbers, I don't know, but 90% of the people wouldn't actually read the detail in your privacy policy. But having one there and making sure it's compliant with Australian law, these privacy policy generators, I have looked at several, and they are just shocked. If you get it for free online, you can't rely on it. I mean, just don't think that the privacy commissioner is going to come along and go, oh, she has a privacy policy, that's fine.
And it's also not from your country either, is it?
Yeah, on top of it all, it's usually from another country. So I just think, I just do it right in the first place when you're setting up, have a little respect for your clients and make sure that you've read it and you actually comply with it. And, there's some basics that we discussed that make sure that you don't, blast them with marketing emails that you're not allowed to do. If you are going to sell the business, make sure that you got the right to pass on their details. There's some basics that you can do to make sure that you comply with and have a little respect for people's personal details. And, as I say, they're looking to expand that definition. So you might think, oh, well, it's just an email address, but there's a lot of information that you can get from an email address, a website. It's really incredible.
Isn't it just? I think you said it so beautifully there, with respect people's details, their private details. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's just human decency. And I think that's a wonderful line. Thank you for that. So let's talk about your website for a moment, because it just, probably about 4 years ago, I had a chat with a legal expert about my privacy policy and all that kind of stuff. And she said to me, it's going to be about $2,500, and we need 4 different documents to prepare for you. And I talked to her a lot about my style of business and stuff. And she said, oh, it's very, very complicated. So you definitely can't just have one of the ones that you buy online. You definitely need it, written especially for you. So the $10,000 quote we first gave you will probably be more like 15,000. And I was just gobsmacked and, ended up not doing it. So I guess my question to you is, when we come to your website and we see there's all these pre-bought templates that we can grab for our sites, which I just think is amazing, what would be the ones that you would say are the most important ones to get you started?
And thank you very much. You gave a very good description of what should be considered when you buy a template, because not one size does not fit everyone. Yeah. And I always try and recommend to our clients, if you're unsure, then put a note into the contact form, describe what your business is. More than happy to tell you if you need something extra that may not be one of the templates listed. We have lots of templates that we've developed over the years because we've been around for 14 years. But we don't put them all up because it's too confusing for people, and then we don't want them to buy something that's not suitable. But all our templates that are up there at the moment that are on our site that you can buy that are DIY, they're all really good base templates to build off. So I always say to our clients and potential customers that, use that as a base, at least have something there. And then as your business grows, contact us and say, I'm doing coaching now, or I've added on a membership, or I'm dealing with children. Do I need anything additional? Because all our templates can be built on, and we're a law firm, and we can, give a quote just to add on, the extra service that they're providing, or the extra waiver or disclaimer they might need. But the top one that I would say for everybody to have is the website legal package. It's got a privacy policy. It's got a disclaimer with a copyright notice to protect your content. And it has the website general terms and conditions, which also includes, and a lot of people don't realize this, but Australian consumer law requires you to have specific statements when you're selling anything through your site, or you are sending people to another site to buy something. Everything that happens on or through your site, you're responsible for as a business owner. You can't say, oh, I sent them to Joe Blogs to buy that pair of shoes. You're responsible because you sent them there and you're enabling them. So if you're enabling something that's illegal, or, those shoes they'll collect the money for them, but they're never going to be sent, you're responsible because you sent them there. So it's really important to have good base terms. And the website legal package, it's just a song, I think, for $179 plus GST. You also get free updates, because if the law changes, we have to change our templates. So we might as well pop out, the latest version to everybody who's purchased a template. And you can't expect business owners to be able to keep up on the latest laws. So I think that's probably the most important package you could get, and way to protect yourself if you're a small business owner.
I had a look at that one when I was on your site, one of the many times I've been on your site taking a look at it. So for those listening, it's legal123.com.au, and then you can just do a search for website legal package. It's different, and we'll also put the link in the chat and stuff. But that's great to know. Thank you very much. If we were going to start somewhere, that's the one. So we haven't touched on a million other things that I would love to have chatted about. For example, trademarking and a whole bunch of stuff. So if you'd be interested in coming back and having another chat someime,
I would be happy to. This has been fun, and I'm quite passionate about all this. You could probably tell. So I would love to, if people find this helpful, it would be, and you're delightful. So
Thank you. I know they will be finding it helpful because there's just, as we talked before we went on live, you start a business. I hear this literally every day in some discovery call or whatever. And I even had this as a chat with someone that I was talking to yesterday about running some presentations for them. And she said the small businesses that come to us, generally speaking, have started because they found they were passionate about something, or they enjoyed something, or they were good about something, or good at something, or it was a hobby that then turned into a business. And never once did they then go, oh, what do I do now? Or I shouldn't say never once, because clearly at some point they've done it and gone, ooh, I really need to actually put some ducks in a row and find out what's legal, what's important, like even just in terms of insurances and things like that. So like even the little ones, like having a separate business bank account, and separating that from your personal. There's just so many aspects to running a business and being a business owner. And it's tricky because that's not why you got into business necessarily, was to do all that icky stuff in the background. But someone has to do it. And at the end of the day, if you are the legal business owner, then it's your responsibility to do it. So yeah, I think there's lots of different topics that we could chat about. I particularly think trademark and copyright would be a really great topic. And also one other one that we were chatting about before we went live was words. You just said very, very briefly, but I wrote it down because it was so good. Use the word recommendation, not advice. So I think, there's some goodies.
There's some juicy ones that I think people need to be aware of. I mean, we have a client at the moment who's very frustrated because they've set up their entire business and realize the name is too close to somebody else who does a similar business, and they're not allowed to use that name. They've been informed by that business that they can't use that name. So they have to buy all new websites. They have to rebrand. So that's a really good, that goes to the trademarking, intellectual property and copyright conversation that we have. But we have a lot of how-to guides that are, I think, really helpful on our site that are just free. You can go and look and give a lot of information to know what you do need to know and what you think you know and maybe don't, or just for some clarifications that people may find helpful. So hopefully that will, it's educating. It's not advice, it's educating.
Thank you. That's so wonderful. Now, we had somebody in the comments on our live ask us, so if you have an international business, which country's privacy legislation is applicable? Very good question, Jacqueline, and a tricky one. I wonder if Vanessa, you'd care to comment on that.
Well, really good question. Unfortunately, again, this is I think, mistake that a lot of people think when they're starting out their business. They think, oh, well, I'll just be international and have international terms. I've never seen any international terms in my life, but to comply with every country in the world is next to impossible. That's what I'm getting at. But you are subject to the privacy laws and the consumer laws of wherever you're selling your products. So if you, as I mentioned before, decide that, or somebody has come to you, you haven't even marketed to the UK, and somebody has come to you and said, I'm really interested in your product or your services. Can you give me a quote, or can you tell me more about it? Just by responding to them, you've taken and you're seem to be collecting personal data from somebody in the UK. Well, GDPR, the data protection laws there apply, because that's their information going overseas. And as soon as you respond back to them, you are collecting their data and you have to comply. So to every country that you are marketing, you have to comply with the laws of that country. And people, the next sort of corollary question to that is, people say, well, I didn't mean to. How do I control that? You say on your site, you need to state, our goods and services are only for Australian residents, or are not available for US and UK and EU residents. You have to actually state it on your site if you want to do it correctly and protect yourself.
Such an interesting one. You've just made my brain go off like fireworks with so many questions around that, because I'm even then thinking, what about collecting the email addresses, even if you're only selling within Australia, for example? But if you've put out a lead magnet on social media and you, generally speaking, you only want the Australian email addresses, but there'll be some people that want what you're offering, your 5 tips, how to, whatever, or your checklist that you're giving, and in return, they're giving you their email address. So clearly that opens up a whole new can of worms, because they could be from another country that is sharing that email. And then what you do with that needs to comply with what's going on in their country.
Exactly. And I think that's a mistake that people do not realize. And a lot of people, as you say, they market generally, and they don't eat. You wouldn't necessarily know where somebody's from by their email address. So you could be, the .coms doesn't mean anything these days. So, it doesn't indicate where anybody's from. So you have to be a little bit conscious and careful of, again, this is what you put on your site.
Yeah.
You need to make very clear terms. You can't just plunk something up there and say, oh, that looks good.
Well, my website address, my URL is hellomedia.team. And then people often, when I'm on the phone and they're asking for my email address, and I'll say, hi at hellomedia.team, and then they'll go .com.au afterwards. And I'm like, no, just .team. And I love that, because it doesn't situate me anywhere. And it just, it says what it's all about. I'm a team with my own team. I'm a team when I work with someone, and I'm a team when I chat with you. So I really like that one. But it's very interesting how there's so many new ones out there that you can take on, so that you don't have to be a .com or a .com.au. However, I definitely think that when you are an Australian business, if you're selling only to Australia, or your services are only to Australia, also having that .com.au is such a good idea, because it can really help people understand exactly where you are.
And it gives you credibility, because we have quite strict laws around, providing the goods and services. They have to have guarantees and warranties, and, that gives protection. Whereas if you're doing a .com, it could be anything, anywhere, in any country.
Yes, absolutely.
You're not allowed to own or set up a .com.au if you are not an Australian resident.
Indeed. And see, I can't even get the .com.au nor the .com, because they're taken by other people that aren't even using them. And that's super frustrating too, when they just sit on them. They're not even in a business that's operating. It's incredibly frustrating. Of course, there's all kinds of legal roads you can go down.
I was just about to say, you can do something about that, but we can talk about that later.
Yes. So let's do 2 more sessions at some point when you're ready. One of them around trademarks and copyrights and all that one. I know that there's a lot of interest in that. And then, particularly even around your logo or your product or whatever. And then the other one I think that would be a fabulous chat would be words. I think the words that we use is a very, very interesting one from a legal perspective. And for me as a marketer, words are my jam, so I don't think about necessarily what words are going to be
that.
the legal ones. I think about what words are going to be the good power words, so it's interesting. That said, I do know from a coaching perspective what I can and can't say, but I certainly know from the marketing perspective, we so often are just thinking about the words that are going to get us the result that we want.
Yeah, the impact.
The impact, that's right. And that's not necessarily going to be the right thing that we're doing. So yeah, I think that's a super good topic as well. So hopefully Jenny will be able to join us in our next session. She hasn't been very well. So hopefully she'll be able to come in, because I know she was pumped to meet you today. But I'm pretty sure she'll be listening live to this. And she'll no doubt have lots of questions that come out of it.
It's fun to come back and meet her too.
Awesome. So thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of Bite Size Business Live Podcast. I have been chatting with Vanessa, and we're putting all the details in the chat so that you can get in touch with her from Legal 123. And as we've mentioned, she has got a wealth of information there with how-to guides and just so many ideas. We've just had someone in the chat say the words would be so good. Yes, Pavla, we'll definitely get going with that. So be sure to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any future episodes. And thanks so much again, Vanessa. And thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.